You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
So we was talking to the commissioner the other day, and he said, how you doing, sir? What can I do for you? And I told him I need you to bring back something. Football back. We in the crowd screaming out, football back. It's kickoff time. We in love with the money. These chickens shaking they pom-poms. Cheerleaders, my honeys, we yelling football back.
Woo! A victory edition of the 2-pack for the first time, although it's just our second one. He's Nick Bornheimer. I'm Alex Petakas. There's two of us, and we talk Packers. That's why we call it the 2-pack. Though today, we will have a third member of our pack. We come to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in New York City, and we thank the people at Packers Talk Net for allowing us to have a platform to talk about our favorite team, because that's what we love doing. At Nick Bornheimer, where you get Nick. At Alex Petakas, where you get me on Twitter. We could spend all day talking about how amazing that last throw was, how pitiful the Lions are, and how just that was one of the coolest moments for fans of this team in a really long time. The Randall Cobb fourth down, probably up there, like Aaron Rodgers said. The Super Bowl, obviously up there. But man, let's just give us like 60 seconds, Nick. Game in 60 seconds.
Yeah. Right, because we could spend the whole hour or however long this podcast goes. I don't know.
Yes.
But we could spend forever talking about it. Let's just let's get official. Give me like 60 seconds.
You want me to time you? You take a lot of pride in your internal clock.
Is that so?
Like a quarterback. I know you do.
Yeah,
I do as
right.
well.
Let's do it.
All right. So give me your 60 seconds on anything related to the game, because then we're going to get to Ben Fennel, who works for NFL Network, the Philadelphia Eagles, ESPN College Football, every football asset there is. He's smart. He's a film junkie. And there's like a million things I want to unpack about this game. But first, just your overall feeling, reaction, whatever it was to the win.
Wow. The defense is good. Like, way good. Like, better than I thought that they were. The offense isn't that good, but Aaron Rodgers is still the best quarterback in the NFL. Wow, again. Can you insert a woo for me?
Woo!
Yep, thank you.
I'm like the Ric Flair of the podcast.
I can't. I just, that was the most Lions way to lose. I think they've out-Lionsed the Lions. Like, how do you... That game was so wrapped up. And...
Literally, it was wrapped up. Number 12, and the game wrapped up.
Man. And Aaron Rodgers threw one to the rafters of Ford Field. And, man, I just can't believe it's amazing. I could break down drive by drive and how terrible the first half looked. And then the momentum, man. Julius Peppers with some momentum.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The defense is hungry. Dom Capers, hashtag fire Dom. God. And what am I at? Am I over?
You're at exactly
okay.
60, right when you went, God. You flamed out. So I gave you 60, and you're just 1 minute. It's all you had in you.
I'm like, now I'm sweating. It's too much.
So my 60, very similar. Defense, really good. And just, it felt like for a while that I was watching Rex Ryan's Jets. Like, I had no faith in the offense putting a drive together. I thought our defense was going to give us a better chance to score, and they did when Julius Peppers forced that fumble to give them the ball back. But we saw Aaron Rodgers put together a drive that he needed to put together. It was still a lot of broken plays. It was still a lot of improv. It was still a lot of him running the ball. That's okay. Nothing is fixed offensively. That's not what we're going to claim here today. But my big takeaway is this defense probably hasn't gotten enough love all year long. They've been amazing. They're down 20 points. A big part of that is the offense turning the ball over. And they're a unit that gets those timely 3-and-outs to get the ball right back to a struggling offense so that they can do everything in their power to find rhythm. holy crap, I can't believe that Richard Rodgers caught a Hail Mary that clean. I've never seen that in my life.
It was so weird. Like, how was everybody 2 yards behind where Richard Rodgers was? It was like he could have basket caught that.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't even have to jump. Nobody was even, there was no opposition.
It was like catching a punt or a center fielder, fielding a fly ball that almost, I mean, if that game's in Dallas, that hits the
big old
huge
Jerry Jumbotron.
And the play, I actually don't know the rule in that spot. I should. I think then the play would be dead and the game would be over. Also, we forgot to include this because my 60 seconds are way up, but face mask, no face mask. I have no problem with the call, not because I'm a Packers fan, and if I'm the Lions, I'm more pissed that we have two guys standing at the 30-yard line in a Hail Mary situation.
You've got bigger issues to worry about and bigger grievances to air if you're a Lions fan than that face mask. Because live time, Aaron Rodgers comes up, his helmet's off, and he's Aaron Rodgers. That's a call that's going to get made.
Right.
I have no issue, and even on the other side of the ball, if I'm a Lions fan, I can't get angry about that call being made.
He didn't twist the face mask, but he still hit it. And like you said, Tom Brady probably gets that call. Peyton Manning, if he's ever playing again, he probably gets that. Those guys get that call. And if you're the Lions, you still had a chance on it. You had 5 guys in the end zone with 5 eligible receivers. To me, that's just an epic breakdown. Yeah, man. And just overall, I know people started to squash it, and we'll get into, the real football-y stuff. People wanted to say, oh, this doesn't fix your offense. One lucky play doesn't fix your... No one's claiming that. I want to make that perfectly clear. You don't feel that way?
No.
I don't feel that way. But to take away from the moment of being able to win on a walk-off, like McCarthy said, we've been on the other side of that. Our guy really caught the ball this time. And I can't go over how cleanly he caught it.
How cool was Mike post-game?
Oh, the best. Just the best. Because you know what it was? It was him giving us... The only time you'll get McCarthy personality, who he actually is in a moment like that or when he's extremely pissed.
Yeah,
he starts dropping
lets his
curse
guard
words.
down a little bit.
He lets his guard down. And this time he let his guard down because he's just drunk with emotion and elation, and he's just like, oh, our guy really caught the ball. You can mark that.
You can mark that.
Yeah.
You can print that in big letters.
Yeah, it was amazing. There was all kinds of great quotes. How good was the on-field interview with Tracy Wilson with Aaron Rodgers, by the way?
Oh, man. Aaron looked like a little kid.
Yeah.
He was so elated, so
ecstatic. Out of breath, calling it maybe the best moment for him other than the Super Bowl victory. I mean, those are strong words.
Yeah, especially in a Week 13. I mean, it's a divisional game, and it's on the road, and it's tough to win there. The Packers have had trouble winning it at Ford Field, and being down 20-0. That was wild.
Yeah. I totally agree. And you kind of feel and this goes against a lot of what I believe in, it's based off nothing, but you almost feel like something like that can turn your season around.
But you're the king of that. You love, this is because of this. I think you're a fake guy, kind of. You're huge into. All right, because of this, now the Packers see. You've done that the last 3 years.
The Raiders game after Favre's dad passed away, I just thought it was destiny that they were going to win this. And then Al Harris picked 6 that. I thought it was destiny. And then 4th and 26 reminded me that there's no such thing as football destiny. And if there are football gods, they don't just love you because you're you. All right, let's get to our guest because. We'll be able to process so many different things. And I haven't talked to Ben Fennel in about a year, so we're gonna hit a lot of things. But I'm excited to get to him. I want to get his thoughts on this defense because he watches the film and he's told me it's a special emphasis on the defense because of how good they've been and how everyone's trying to dissect what's wrong with the offense. So there's a million theories out there and a really close eye on the receivers and on Aaron Rodgers and his fundamentals, this, that, and the other. But what do you know? Other side of the ball, that's the unit that's carrying this team. So we'll get to Ben now. He is a producer for the NFL Network, also a producer for ESPN's college football asset, a video editor for the Eagles, basically just a football guy. If John Gruden were to describe Ben Fennel at Ben Fennel _NFL, he wouldn't be a football player, but he would be a football guy.
A real workhorse.
Yeah, exactly. Usually stationed on the other side of the Hudson River as this podcast comes to you from New York City. But I think today, from some undisclosed location in Texas, am I getting that right? It's Ben Fennel joining us now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually on my way out of Fort Worth right now. I just got done covering the Texas-Baylor game. and heading back east now. And it's just crazy this college football season's already over. I just remember sitting here in August looking at the schedule and what we had ahead, and now we're already into December, and we got bowl games and playoff football coming, and the season just flew by in a flash.
So if you could explain to everyone, because I feel like your intro, I just read your Twitter profile, because every time I talk to you, like every couple of weeks or every couple of months, you add something else to your resume. Like, what do you do?
You know, I found it more and more difficult to describe my life and my career to outsiders as I meet new people. Even my mom and my dad have a tough time understanding my schedule. Nobody seems to understand how I work for all these other companies throughout the year, and I have different jobs. But in a nutshell, during the football season, I'm regularly employed as a video editor in the Philadelphia Eagles media department. I'm based out of Philadelphia, so it's a convenient match there. And then on weekends, typically Friday and Saturday, because obviously the Eagles play on Sunday, I'll fly out to a different ESPN college football game with my crew at Dave Pash, Brian Greasy, Tom Luganville. And I'll sit in the truck and I'll do in-game replay packages for Greasy, usually a little bit more X's and O's, analytical base, you know, a lot of circles and arrows, and slow it down or rewind and try to get into a little bit more strategic football. And then once that ends, I usually help out Mike Mayock over at the NFL Network and doing some Senior Bowl, Combine, and draft coverage.
Nice. That was a very thorough explanation. That's perfect.
Is football nerd like fair? Are you offended by that? Or is that like a compliment to someone like you?
No, I'm perfectly okay with that. You know, there's much worse forms of nerdery to be associated to.
We aspire to be as nerdy as you do.
Yeah, we definitely do. Well, anyone who doesn't follow Ben on Twitter, Ben Fennel _NFL, especially if you're a Packers fan, you're missing out. So Ben, full disclosure, is one of us. Basically, he's a Packers fan, but obviously looks at it with a very analytical eye, and oftentimes the eye in the sky. And that's what we want to talk about today. So I guess we'll start off, because you are a fan. I know this isn't like a very in-depth question, but just your reaction to the other night, because to me that seems like one of those moments, like no matter who, you know, what you're doing, if you're a Packers fan, like you'll always remember when that Hail Mary was caught by Richard Rodgers.
You know, I think I was stunned, and it was a wild finish, and it was exciting to watch, and it was fun, but I think that just describes Aaron Rodgers to a T, and what he is and what his career is. All you need is a chance. And if you just give the guy a chance, and that chance could just be one play, one smidgen of, you know, a pocket, you know, while he's moving around to have a platform to throw from, you know, scrambling, buying time. This is why everybody buys into the program. This is why offensive linemen fight to the whistle to stay on their blocks and allow Aaron to, you know, scramble around and receivers to uncover. All this guy needs is a chance. And that one play was a perfect representation on what he's all about.
Was it a face mask? We think yes.
You know, watching it in super slow-mo and HD and 4K and phantom cameras and NASA chiming in on it, it probably wasn't a face mask. But who cares? You know, stuff gets missed all the time. It is what it is. You got to, you know, play another down if you're the Lions and do your job every play. You know, take nothing for granted. Sometimes you get good calls. Sometimes you don't get good calls. You know, I'm not really into the whole, you know, evaluating the refs and the missed calls or things that were called. And, you know, you got to play, you know, and that's what it comes down to. You got to execute your job.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, if you want to really start getting down to missed calls, I mean, a couple plays before that, or actually one play before that, I believe, you could argue was a pass interference call. That should have set them up for a field goal, so it's
I thought that was very much a pass interference call. I thought he was coming back to play the football. The defender kind of turned around at the last minute to make it look like he was turning around for it, but, yeah, I definitely thought that could have been called, but it wasn't, and, you know, you move on.
Yeah.
Did you watch the TV? Like, you watched it on TV, right? Because my favorite part of it was Mike Carey earlier in the game, an identical play, was saying when they threw the flag how great of a call it was. He's like, you got to throw it there. You got to throw it there. And then that time with Abdiaris, he's like, oh, that's a great no call, a great no call. I'm like, that's the same exact play you said in the first quarter was a great call.
Yeah, I know. That was tough to watch. But, hey, those announcers are put in such tough positions, you know, to offer their opinions on whether things are, you know, they agree or disagree or good call, bad call, and they live in the moment. You know, it's tough to kind of reflect back to think, oh, yeah, they called that in the first half. Let me make sure I have the same opinion. You know, everybody's in the moment.
Yeah. So we really want to hit on the defense and just how far they've come, you know, from the 2014 season and even earlier on this season as you've got a young secondary and a rejuvenated defensive line, and they're all just kind of coming together as pretty cohesive units. So we're curious, just like in your general film breakdown, what you see and how these guys are kind of clicking on all cylinders right now.
Well, collectively, if we could just take a step back for a second, over the past couple of years, I think as Packer fans, we know the aggravation our defense has put us through. We've given up tons of yards. I think we were last in the league the past couple of years in passing yardage and giving up big plays, and the defense was so unreliable. There's a lot of guys being rotated through. Caper's job is kind of on the line. I wonder, is the scheme really right? Is it putting too much pressure on the players and things like that? So it's just a complete 180 to have so much confidence in our defense, to be playing so well. And the offense now has been struggling in 2015, and we're just looking for that one game for the offense to help us out. And I just remember the past couple of years, we're looking for that one game for the defense to win it for us, because you knew Rodgers was going to put up 25, 30, 35 points, and make it a competitive game. So philosophically, and just taking a step back, it's a refreshing feeling. Obviously we would hope for the offense and the defense to be clicking at the same time, but it's refreshing to watch this defensive group, especially relying on and getting contributions from so many young guys. And I just love the philosophy of sticking them in the fire and seeing what they got and learning about them. And you learn their development, what they can do, what they can't do. You can't buy your way out of problems in the NFL. You can't just buy free agents to plug and play, like teams like, the Philadelphia Eagles have kind of done over the past couple of years. I don't really feel like that works. And I just think the model franchises in the NFL rely on young players, and sometimes you hit on them, sometimes you miss on them, but you have to rely on them, and you have to put them in that position.
And I feel like one of the really young position groups, and I'm sure that this is something that stood out to you too, is the secondary. And I got to get your thoughts on Clinton-Dix, because I know I was reading earlier Pro Football Focus. I think Nathan Jenke was the one who broke it down. He has one of the highest grades against the run this year. And when he's drafted, he's like, this guy's a center fielder. He's the guy who can cover that we haven't had, and he does all that. But the other things he does, especially in that Lions game, is make a ton of plays around the line of scrimmage. I mean, the way they're using him, I guess the best way I would phrase the question is, does he remind you of anyone? How do you begin to describe what he is for this defense right now?
Right. Well, if I could just quickly chime in on Thursday's game, I thought both safeties, I thought Morgan Burnett and Ha Ha Clinton-Dix did a great job rolling into the box and contributing on the run and sticking their nose in. So I think collectively they both did a really good job. But Clinton-Dix, I'm not really sure who he reminds me of. He's very long. He has those long arms. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He can run sideline to sideline. He kind of reminds me of a bigger Troy Polamalu, to be honest with you. Almost a freak version, considering how broad he is and how long his arms and his legs are. Troy was a little bit shorter and quicker, but
could Troy cover
all over the place? I mean, Troy in his heyday, he was mugging the A gap and then bailing out to the deep middle free safety position. The guy can move. He can run sideline to sideline. He might not have been that man-to-man cover guy. You wanted to stick him one-on-one with Gronkowski. But when Troy was in his prime, it was kind of a different league. They really weren't being isolated like that in the early 2000s. When he was, playing really well. But, I think Ha Ha Clinton-Dix is right on the verge of being one of the best defensive players in all of the National Football League. Not just at the safety position. I think the way he's developed this year, he's grown exponentially. And he's right there on the cusp of big plays. Just missing interceptions or, just missing the play or maybe just missing that ball carrier in the backfield. He's just missing those impact plays that are going to make you say, wow, if this team was winning a little bit more consistently, Clinton-Dix might be up there for Defensive Player of the Year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the theme last year as well. Packers fans kind of took solace in the fact that although Clinton-Dix wasn't making those plays, he was always there or he was always in position. And it feels like he's even getting closer and closer this year.
Absolutely, and I think he had a pick or two go off his hands in the red zone this year, and I think there was a game, I don't remember if it was San Diego, there was a ball that got tipped up from somebody else, and he caught the interception. And it's those type of plays that things are going to start falling into his lap because he's in the right places. And I thought that play was pretty representative of him. It wasn't his play, but he's starting to be in the right place at the right time, And these big plays are going to come in chunks. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls off a 2 or 3 interception game or has a big, fumble recovery for a touchdown or makes some impactful play, to really change the course of a game and to put himself on the map in this league.
Yeah, and Russell Wilson was atrocious in the game, but look at the NFC Championship game. And that kind of just felt like one of those moments, like that's Clinton-Dix at his best. And if he could play at that level, like with more confidence and more experience, I guess, like in years 3, 4, whatever, he's going to be unstoppable.
Absolutely, and I think we all saw those flashes as a rookie. It's just that consistency factor. And, being a rookie defensive back in the NFL, you're not going to be consistent. And I think the learning curve he went through last year was more than appropriate and tolerable from a rookie. And, it's just refreshing to see those strides and to see him in the right places and starting to make those plays and, not have those mental lapses that we saw from time to time.
Can we just chalk like Morgan Burnett's like first 3 years of his career up to the fact that he was just playing the wrong position? Because he's really good now. He's kind of like an extra linebacker.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to make of Morgan Burnett or when we had M.D. Jennings and, some of those guys back there. The whole defense just took turns in 2012, 13, 14. Everyone just took turns, giving up big plays, blowing coverages. Rarely ever guys got just beat man-to-man. It was always busted coverage, missed assignments, kind of mental errors, and I didn't really know how to evaluate some of the young people when they do that. Because you're not really being beaten physically or athletically or one-on-one. It's just a mental thing, and that's why so much pressure got put on Don Capers to say, hey, are you rotating too many players? Are you asking them to do too much? Are you have too many combo coverages and pressure packages, and should you simplify it? So he was kind of tough to evaluate, but it's nice to see him grow into his role. And, I know he played every snap against Detroit, and he's a big contributor on this defense, and they rely on him. He knows the system, and it's nice to see him playing well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of curious, too, about the linebacking core, and in particular, the inside linebacker position. I'm wondering if you can shine a little light on. I just feel like there's like no rhyme or reason schematically to when Joe Thomas is in the game versus, I think Nate Palmer is being benched now just because he hasn't been playing very well. But Jake Ryan's kind of been, he's been featured a little bit more, and he's actually played pretty well.
Yeah, he did play really well. And just to speak about the position in big picture, it's been kind of a Bermuda Triangle over the past 5 or 6 years there. You have Nick Barnett, he goes down. All of a sudden, Desmond Bishop steps in. He seems to be playing well. He goes down. Oh, Brad Jones, yeah, step him up. He'll play with A.J. Hawk in there. And it's like they never really prepared themselves, in the draft or in free agency to say, hey, this is a position of need. It's a position of value. We need to address this because we have constant injuries. I don't know if they just don't value that position as highly as others, and it's kind of the middle of the defense, and you can kind of rely on, the people behind you and in front of you, and you're obviously very surrounded being that linebacker. But it was just interesting how they constantly had different people in there, and you seem to always get the same result. And this year seems to be no different, obviously, with Barrington going down, and now Nate Palmer has to step up, and Palmer kind of play was inconsistent, and now we have Jake Ryan in there. So it's kind of an interesting position to evaluate over the past couple of years. But touching on Jake Ryan against Detroit, it was his most playing time this year. I thought he played fantastic for what they asked him to do. I thought he got better as the game progressed, which I think is a huge, huge attribute from a rookie. I'm not expecting to come right out and make impactful plays, but to develop within the game and to get comfortable within the game and to see things a little bit quicker in the fourth quarter than you do in the first quarter. I think those types of strides are really, big signs for the development of a young player.
Ben, going back to what you were saying, though, and I think you and I had this conversation almost a year ago about whether or not they value that position. Just seeing what they've done so far this year, though, don't you think they can get away with it? Because I feel like, and I have no idea because I don't watch any other team as closely, I feel like the Packers can get away with stopping the run when in nickel because of the fact that Morgan Burnett's playing around the line of scrimmage and he's doing well. Clinton-Dix is like flying up and making all kinds of plays, and Micah Hyde seems like a guy who's better around the ball than in space covering. It's almost as if maybe they don't value that position because they're going to be a nickel predominantly anyway, and they feel like, you know what, Daniels is so good at getting penetration, we can stop the run in nickel. Yeah,
that's kind of the name of the game in the NFL right now. Can you keep the defensive backs on the field in nickel and dime, and obviously match the athleticism of these gazelle receivers and these high-powered offenses, yet be able to hold up against the run? And that's what San Francisco really prided themselves on when they had Harbaugh and were making all those NFC Championship games, is being able to stop the run with those six-man boxes and to not rely on your nickel back and your safety and whatnot. But the Packers' nickel coverage, they still have Clay out there, and they still have another linebacker and 4 down defensive linemen, and then those 5 defensive backs. So I think, you in order to stop the run in nickel, you need 2 linebackers that can do it all. You have to be able to cover. You have to be able to fend for yourself. You're not going to be defending outnumbered boxes. So guards, centers, offensive linemen, tight end are going to have their free way up to you, free access up to the linebackers, and you have to be able to fight your way off of it, shed blockers, and make tackles. And that's a tough skill set to have, and it puts a lot of pressure on these linebackers, but that's kind of the name of the game in the NFL. You got to be able to stop the run in nickel. Got to get that support from your safeties, like we've had been with Burnett and Clinton-Dix kind of crashing the box, and I think we've been doing pretty well at it.
Is Clay one of those guys you feel like can do it all? How good or bad, but I'm assuming good, do you think he's been now kind of full-time inside?
He's been typical Clay Matthews. I never really, and I don't know if it's going to come out right, I've never really highly valued his football skill set, to be honest with you. He never really did anything in a football sense that made you say, like, wow, that guy's a technician. The guy is just a freak athlete. He's fast, he's strong, and he has some instincts, which I'll give him that. But, I think just playing that middle of the field is perfect for him. Obviously being able to run sideline to sideline, to get ahead of steam, to blitz, and, attack the line of scrimmage, to fight off blocks like we were talking about, being in a second level off-the-ball linebacker like that. I think it just gives him more free range to be impactful and to do more out there, which he's capable of doing. He's a freak athlete. He's fast and strong. There's a place for him out there,
So at Ben Fennel _NFL hates Clay Matthews, basically.
Right.
I hate his football skill set, but here's like 1,000 compliments about.
What did he ever do? Like even when he was primarily an edge rusher.
No,
what
he would blow plays
other than just run real fast and be real strong
and disregard any actual assignment. Just be like wildly undisciplined and just be like, screw this. Like I'm going after. I didn't set the edge. That's
I'm trying to think back in my head if he ever hit like a spin move on Joe Staley in the playoffs or anything like that. Like I don't even know if he had pass rushing moves. He was just fast and aggressive and strong, and that combination alone will give some people problems.
Well, this year early on, it seemed like he would just turn sideways, like nobody blocked him.
He does the turnstile blitz. That's what you called it, right? Nick was saying he's like excuse me, man. He kind of like goes sideways and slices through the A gap like. Horizontally. It's the weirdest thing. All right, are you quick hitters? Are you a Quentin Rollins guy?
I am a Quentin Rollins guy. I studied him pretty hard last year in preparing for the draft. Obviously not a huge football background being the basketball player at Miami, Ohio, but a big-time ball hawk in college. Defensive back rookies are in a tough position in the NFL, and I love that the Packers are leaning and relying on these guys and giving them opportunities. He spent a little bit more time outside at corner this past game than we've seen from him. I think he's done most of his work, like against Chicago, he was in the slot in that kind of Casey Hayward role, defending the slot receivers and giving some pressure off the edge in that, Charles Woodson role as well from a couple years back. But he played, standard corner against Detroit. I didn't like his skill set there as much as I thought I would. And I'm thinking he's probably Casey Hayward's replacement at this point, if I had to project into the next 2 years.
Okay. We didn't get to see him on Thursday, but how good is Demarius Randall? I mean, he just won Rookie of the Month. He's got a high Pro Football Focus rating. He seems to be able to hold his own out there and playing out of position after being converted from a safety. Where do you think his ceiling is?
Yeah, he's another one. Again, no rookie defensive back is going to come in and shut the league down. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if you're Revis or Richard Sherman. It doesn't happen. It's going to be a learning curve. And you're going to give up big plays, and you're going to get beat. But are you making plays to complement that? And that's what Randall has done. For every play he's given up, he's made a play. And sometimes it was late in the game and that crunch time that you wish, hey, where were these plays earlier in the game? That why'd you put us in this position, But he's shown the ability and the potential to look comfortable out there and to make big plays and to have an impact. Now he just needs to be a little bit more consistent. There's some serious technique issues that he has. Same thing with Quentin Rollins. I don't know if it's across the board what they're being coached in the defensive back group. But he's a converted safety. He was kind of a hybrid nickelback corner safety at Arizona State, so he's going to have to learn that, the true position of cornerback in the NFL. But considering that and what we've asked him to do and pretty much be a day one less cornerback starter in the National Football League, I think he's done a pretty good job.
Why the hell did Detroit throw so many screens, like wide receiver screens? Again, I only watch Detroit when they play Green Bay for the most part. I don't know if Golden Tate catches like 5 of those a game, but that was like almost their entire offense.
I just think that's how their offense is built. They'll throw the ball vertically some weeks, and they like to get the ball into their playmakers' hands, and Golden Tate and Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah. I just think that was probably the game plan going in. We have some smaller defensive backs out there, and you get guys like Calvin and Corey Fuller and some of those bigger receivers on them. Maybe they thought they could take advantage of the blocking matchups on the outside. They have some elusive players, obviously, with Tate and Abdullah and Theo Riddick, and I guess that was just part of the game plan going in, get the ball out quick. Maybe they anticipated our safeties getting nosy into the box like they've been, blitzing those slot defenders. You blitz a slot defender and you throw a bubble screen or a slip screen into it, that could be a big play. So, maybe they saw some of those pressure packages and thought, hey, let's get the ball out quick from Stafford and, maybe somebody can make a play on the outside.
Should we switch gears and ask a couple offensive questions?
No. Let me. My last defensive question.
Right,
again, I
fine.
feel like we've been long-winded. We apologize for asking you 1,000 questions about the defense, but they need some love because they've been underappreciated as all hell.
That's fair.
And everyone throws their hands up when they give up a score on a one-play drive to Calvin Johnson. But Aaron Rodgers threw that damn pick to get them back out on the field, and guess what? They played some really good football to even keep them in the game. I feel like they're just the opposite of what they've been, where they they allow the back-breaking drive. Instead, they get the quick 3 and out exactly when they need it. But, all right, I just have to know, if you had to ballpark the number of how many times this year you're turning on Packers film and watching Mike Daniels do something that makes you go, holy shit, man. like, wow, that guy is amazing.
Now it's not really fair because I keep looking for it. And my eyes go right to him when I'm watching it. It's like, all right, let me watch Daniels, and okay, what happened on the play? Let me watch everybody else. Because he's going to do something entertaining. He's become one of my favorite players. Obviously, you guys know I tweet about him all the time, and I'm always highlighting what he does and his ability to get guys off balance and to throw his offensive lineman on the ground. And no matter how it happens, he seems to always get the guy he's against on the ground, which I think is a huge, huge trait for these defensive linemen. I'm a huge man crush on him. I think he's a great player. I love the way he was trash talking AP 2 weeks ago when AP was mic'd up. I thought that was great stuff, and he just looks like he's having a good time out there, and he plays well. And I like those, unheralded, unsung guys that aren't high draft picks or sexy players getting 18 to 20 sacks. He's just a blue collar, works hard, plays great every snap against the run, against the pass, and does his job.
How much of the run defense is him though? Because I feel like with Adrian Peterson, like, as he's getting the ball, right, like, his feet are stopped because 76 has got either his lineman, he's driving him back into the actual mesh point, or he's, just
or
hit
taking
him with a
out
quick
3 blockers.
Yeah,
and...
I feel like he's such a
the guy is, I don't know how to describe him. He's a disruptor. He doesn't make every play, but he's going to disrupt the timing or the rhythm or the blocking scheme in the offense. And that's what you want out of defensive tackles. We have linebackers back there. We have safeties that come fill and make tackles. Just disrupt, throw guys off, shoot off at the line, don't get beat at the point of attack, and usually good things are going to happen. And he doesn't make every play. B.J. Raji's playing outstanding. When you get guys like Mike Fennell coming off the bench and Guyon, to give some reserve duty, they're playing outstanding. And our rotation of outside linebackers that now, I guess, include Dayton Jones and Mike Neal and Nick Perry, and those guys play very well, very good as well. The huge rotational group. I was kind of against it the past couple of years. I'm starting to come around on it now. Everybody
you were against it? Why were you against it? Why were you against it? You got to give us the background.
Because people weren't ever beat in just straight man-to-man situations or straight physical situations. It was always coverage busts or some sort of scheme issue. And it was like, hey, maybe they have too many players coming in here. Maybe we're subbing in and out too many players, and the cohesion was kind of being lost, and that consistency, and everybody understanding everybody's assignment and where to be. You know, over the past couple of years, we saw numerous busted coverages and big plays and horrible pass defense. So I thought, hey, maybe we should vanilla this up a little bit. Let's keep more of a base group out there for some consistency. But I'm starting to come around now. I think Dom has cut back a little bit on the diversity, but this group seems to be able to come in and out, interchange. Everybody's picking it up and understanding roles. And this season more than others with the injuries and the rookies, I want to say we've dressed 25 to 30, maybe even a little bit more different defenders out there.
Yeah, I love how easy it is just to now credit Dom Capers as just like a defensive genius when #Fire Capers was like constantly trending in Milwaukee and Green Bay last season. It's fun. It makes it a little interesting.
I'm rarely ever a bash the coach guy. I'm a big execution guy. You know, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. But when I kept seeing all those busts and you see scheme issues and guys in the wrong places and doing the wrong thing, you see it for so long, at some point there's an issue. There's a higher power issue. So that was one of the rare instances. I was kind of looking at the coach like, you got to get this cleaned up. You know, there's obviously issues with them understanding what to do in the mix-ups in that regard. But it seems to be cleaned up, and they're obviously playing much better this year. So, you know, Capers hangs around for the time being.
Yeah, and speaking of scheme and coaching and all of that, this offense, man, I don't know. There's hot takes to be had all over the place. Is it the Jimmies and the Joes? Is it just our wide receivers can't get off the line, they can't do anything against bump coverage? Or is it scheme? And the Aaron Rodgers inconsistency hasn't helped a ton, but I don't know. Where do you stand? Is it just our wide receivers aren't as talented?
Well, I have the same philosophy on that side of the ball. So the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and O's. And I love simple, basic football. And some people want to rag on how it's a vanilla offense and there's no diversity. And like somebody on Twitter a couple of weeks ago had a breakdown of a play and that they ran mirrored slant flats. Like, I love slant flat. It works in Pee Wee, Pop Warner, high school, college, NFL, because when run properly, it works against everything.
The first time we talked, somebody was ragging
on that it was a bad play design, and it was like mirrored slant flats. And I'm like, I love mirrored slant flats. Rodgers has thrown maybe 100 touchdowns on slant flat in his career. Like, so you can't knock the system. It's, of course, the Jimmies and the Joes. And I have to put a lot of this on Aaron Rodgers. And even watching the Detroit game, he's not immune to fundamental and technique issues. And I think we've gotten kind of enamored with him running around and throwing from different platforms and these jump passes and throwing awkwardly and left-handed and backwards or whatever. Sometimes his feet are awful. Sometimes these jump passes put that ball right into the feet of the receiver. Sometimes he doesn't want to set his feet because he has that kind of quick twitch, ratchet fire release. And he gets away with it for the most part. But he's not immune to mistakes because of that. And even in the Detroit game, I think we saw a couple passes, at the knees and feet of the receiver on check downs and things like that, hey, if they catch that, they have some room to run. And, if you don't get it into their hands and put it on them, and I know Rodgers takes accountability, and I know he's very hard on himself, and he understands when he makes mistakes. And he's earned every right to make those mistakes. Obviously, we're not putting him on a short leash. But I think he needs to take a lot of the credit, and he understands that. He knows.
But those mistakes are new, though, aren't they, Ben? I think we're shocked because he almost always got away with it.
Yeah, I guess as Packer fans, I think we've been a little bit spoiled over the past, maybe 25 years, going right from Favre, right to Rodgers, and having these magicians back there. It's not always going to be, sunshine and rainbows back there. I think we've been a little bit spoiled with the big-time plays he's made, and we need to understand, hey, this is the National Football League. It's tough to win consistently. It's tough to be a consistently dominant quarterback. It just doesn't happen that often. And I think what he's done is very impressive, but he's not perfect, and we need to understand that. And, I think he's hard on himself and knows when he makes mistakes and needs to clean up, some of the technique issues and the fundamental stuff and his throwing mechanics because, when he has mistakes with his mechanics, there's going to be mistakes with the throws. He's no different than any other quarterback, whether it's some rookie coming in, a high school player, or Tom Brady or Joe Montana. They're not immune to mistakes, and you have to be fundamentally sound on every play.
I remember. So going back to what you were saying, I remember the first time I talked to you. You explained your passion for slant flat, and you said it's one of the beauties of the Packers offense is that it's almost overly simplistic. It's like almost like West Coast 101, and
it absolutely is. I don't even know if I would say West Coast 101. It's getting to be pretty close to football 101 in just the passing football era.
All right. So I guess my question then is. You put a lot of it on Rodgers, but they'd run slant flat and it'd be pretty successful with Randall Cobb. How big of a difference is Jordy Nelson in just being able to, as a Jimmy or a Joe, win, as opposed to Devontae Adams?
Nelson, I think after watching Devontae Adams for 12 games this year, I've just come to appreciate what Jordy Nelson is and what he does more and more. This guy is just a model citizen, and to see him on the sideline in Detroit when he's out for a season, an away game on a Thursday, how great is it to see him out on the sideline with his teammates in a game like that when he's injured? I think it just speaks to who he is as a person, as a teammate. But between the lines and between the whistles, Jordy Nelson is outstanding. His size, his speed, his route running precision is between the ears. He understands coverages. He understands defenses. He's a high school quarterback. He caught over 200 balls at Kansas State. He had a great rapport with Rodgers. They understood defenses, and things like that are tough to replace. But his skill set was as well-rounded as any wide receiver in the league. And I'll put him toe-to-toe with Des Bryant and Julio Jones, or whoever else you want to throw out. As far as a complete wide receiver skill set, I think Jordy Nelson was right up there, and you're not going to be able to replace that. But I think you just need to appreciate it and do what you can to get by without him.
Is it fair or unfair, though, to say that, if you don't have the Jimmies and the Joes who are equipped to win on the simplistic football, that then more creativity is desired? I'm not disagreeing with you. I think their offense for a long time they were able to be so simple because they had a quarterback with pinpoint accuracy and receivers who could beat a guy one-on-one. But I don't know what it is. They don't have that right now. They just don't.
Yeah, you really don't. And, there is some schematic things they can do to help out the system and design, plays for certain guys to get open and put people in the bunch and things like that they still do. Maybe not as much as we would like. Obviously, while we're struggling, we want to see it a little bit more because the vanilla basic, Jimmy's and Joe stuff doesn't seem to be working. But every now and then, you'll see a drive in a game, and maybe it's late, maybe it's early, maybe it's just a random time, where they're running the exact same stuff and everything's clicking. And you just know that that's how it's supposed to look. And what I'm talking about right now is one of those last drives in Detroit before the Hail Mary drive when they marched right down the field and scored the touchdown. That's how the West Coast offense is supposed to look. He had a great ball. I think it was to Richard Rodgers over the seam down the middle. But other than that, he just got the ball out quick to the backs in the flat, quick to Randall Cobb on the 4th and 1 play, and it was all yards after catch. Out on time and accurate, and the receiver caught it clean and got right upfield. That's how the plays are supposed to be run. And, that really hasn't happened, whether it was Rodgers being inaccurate or a receiver getting tied up or drops or things like that, whatever the reasons were that they weren't executing. You always see that, stretch of plays and that potential that this is how it's supposed to look when things run properly. And it just, gives me that faith and that reassurance that what they're doing is right if they just execute.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions. We know you've got a flight to catch. Richard Rodgers had a little coming out party, so to speak. And even the Hail Mary catch aside, he looked pretty well. Is Richard Rodgers good, I guess, is my question. He looks opey. He runs kind of rounded routes. But he's got incredible hands, and it seems like the Rodgers to Rodgers connection there's some trust there. And once you get 12's trust, obviously you know how pivotal that can be. What are your thoughts on Richard?
I was never high on him. I thought he was a decent, average NFL tight end. He had obviously better hands than he was a blocker, so his athleticism was more of his highlight than his toughness and size and gritty inline blocking. But this team, this offense, Aaron Rodgers, they need that middle of the field presence. Rodgers loved throwing those seam routes and those banana routes, those banana back shoulders to Jermichael Finley over the years, right down the middle of the field. Quarterbacks love those seam throws. And he needed that. And that's what I really liked when Perillo stepped up a couple weeks ago and had those big catches over the middle. He just needs that big-bodied, good, sure-handed presence over the middle. Richard Rodgers isn't competing for a Pro Bowl spot or any sort of elite status in the league. But he's a crafty little route runner, and he has good hands. If you watch the Chicago game, if you just watch away from the ball, on some of those plays where Rodgers didn't pull the trigger, Richard Rodgers gets open. And he has, he's a little clunky, and obviously, like you said, some rounded routes, but he gets open. He's got a little wiggle at the top, and he almost, as we like to say, outslows the defense. In that you're so big and clunky running at somebody, they're not expecting a sharp move, and then he just has a nice little wiggle or a head snap that gets himself open. So he's not really a threatening presence to the defense, but he gets open and he's catching the ball, and that's what we need. He's a big, wide-bodied target, and I think every offense kind of needs that.
I was gonna ask, has anyone ever looked less athletic, doing really athletic things? But then I forgot that Justin Perillo is his backup, and then I realized that yes, indeed, Justin Perillo looks less athletic, doing athletic things.
No, he just looks clunky out there. It's just jersey doesn't fit him right. He's got the baggy long sleeves.
Someone get that guy
a
jersey a size bigger, man. Like, what's going on there?
I know. Get him some, tight-fitting dry fit under there to look a little cleaner,
Something. Speaking of, Eddie Lacy, I know it was like a disciplinary thing that has since come out, apparently. I think he might have missed curfew.
Yeah, the curfew. Yeah.
And Alonzo Harris lost his job because of it. So, obviously, the consequence when you're Alonzo Harris
is much more extreme than it is when you're Eddie Lacy.
Is much worse. But even before that, though, was the beginning of the season kind of just an aberration? Because the past 2 weeks prior to the Thursday's win, I mean, they were running the ball effectively with him again.
Right. I don't know if you guys remember, the beginning of last year, the first 4 or 5 weeks, Eddie Lacy kind of struggled as well. And I got in a big debate with somebody at work, and I was really dogging him, and I didn't like him at all, and he kind of started to perk up in the middle of the end of the season. I was like, all right, I guess I kind of see the potential. I see what he does in the open field on screen passes and whatnot. But now that I'm watching it again this year, and the same kind of issues are coming back up, I'm starting to think this is just who he is. He's going to be a little choppy-footed. He's going to run upright. And those two traits alone are going to get you into some trouble in the NFL. Now, he's obviously a big bowling ball type of running back, and he kind of has that Brandon Jacobs style that he's tough to bring down. But he doesn't really have that burst. He doesn't really have that acceleration. He's kind of lacking the vision. Even when we saw James Starks in there hitting those cutback lanes and showing a little bit more wiggle, I'm starting to think this is just what Eddie Lacy is, and I don't know what the sustainability in the NFL is for a guy like that. Obviously, you can manage him into the offense, and everybody needs that kind of powerful, bruising running back for short yardage and for change of pace and things like that. And obviously, I'd love to get him on screen passes and things like that as well, but I'm starting to think the more that I watch him, this is just who he is, and I wouldn't be surprised if his touches are kind of not phased out, but limited and minimized towards the end of the season here.
Yeah. All right. Winning against good teams sustainable for the Packers right now, or are you kind of, I don't know, a little bit more pessimistic?
No, I'm very optimistic. Even when they're skidding a little bit, I'm still very optimistic, and I'm rarely ever in panic mode. My mom, every time we lose, she wants to, jump off the ledge, and I kind of talk her down. And, hey, don't be a typical panic-filled fan, all right? We have great coaches. We have a great quarterback. We have great players. Don't panic, all right? Remember last year, everybody had to say relax. We go through this every year. Teams are going to have trials and tribulations. We'll be okay. We have a great system in place. We have good people around, and I think we'll be okay. And I have confidence in us to go out and compete every week. If we can just strand together a couple wins at the right time and get hot in late December, January, next thing you know, you're sitting on a Super Bowl.
Some optimistic words to end on.
Yeah. Are you your mom's Packer therapist? Like, I'm interested in that dynamic, like an overreacting mom and a son whose job basically is to be analytical and not go too far one way or too far the other way. What's
she's
the
a
best?
pretty emotional fan, and then she knows my work and my career, so she tries to like talk some X's and O's with me as well. And, she's like, "Oh, I think Roger's eyes are dropping." I'm like, "Oh, whoa, you're
wait, really? Oh, really? She hits you with that? That's
Wow.
amazing.
My mom is still
like, wow,
go fast.
What's the most fair analysis that Mama Fennel has ever provided, and then the hottest of takes that she's ever given?
Let me think. She said, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we need more play action deep shots, which I thought that was kind of a creative comment from her.
She misses that. She misses Jordy running like all the way across the field, like catching the ball on the right half.
Yeah, I'm right there with her
on the left side of the numbers.
I usually tone down my X's and O's talk with her. I don't try to get too in depth with her.
All right, what about the most emotion? So that's like fair. That's like okay, reasoned. Has she ever just wanted a guy cut or something like that?
She's not too cutthroat with individuals. She's very emotional when the game is going on. She's definitely a screamer and a jumper, and a big arms flailer. But she's not too brutal with individuals and saying he's a bum or he needs to get out of town or he needs to be cut, playing pseudo fan GM. But she's pretty involved. She has a good eye. She knows what she's looking at.
Yeah, my mom will go the Olivia route. That's where, and she's not even a fan. My mom just loves to just be like outlandish and say crazy things. I know, Nick. What, your family wants Joe Philbin back?
Yeah. Oh man, Jimbo was all over the place last week. My dad was calling for Joe Philbin and Tom Clements' head. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I had to talk him off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah, like forget what happened in Miami. We need Joe Philbin back.
I'm like, where do you? What? Yeah.
Hey, I hear you. Hey, I work for the Eagles right now. I got to talk a lot of people off the Chip Kelly ledge right now. So
oh yeah,
we got bigger problems.
Oh yeah. Well, wait. Are you in on the Chip Kelly genius as someone who obviously has to be around as much Eagle football?
Am I part of the Chip Kelly genius? Is
no.
that
Are you buying into it? Like, is he revolutionary in terms of the NFL, or is this going to bite him in the ass and he's going to be the head coach at some SEC school in like a couple of years, maybe next year? You probably can't say. We can't ask you that. Never mind. You're like employed by the Eagles, right? What am I doing?
I was about to say, what's his errand on?
I'm not. No,
I think it was innovative. I think it was innovative, and it was different when it first came out. The hurry-up aspect is becoming much more widespread. Again, the Eagles have a very similar offense to the Packers in that it's very simple, and it's just based off of execution, and there's a little bit more off of tempo and diversity like we have. But it's a mess, and I don't like the team's philosophy, just like I was saying before about the Packers. I love that the Packers don't go out and outrageously spend on outside free agents and try to fix their problems with money and outsiders. And when you spend on big money free agents and you lose, it sets your organization back years. And to spend money on DeMarco Murray and Byron Maxwell and to trade for Bradford and you get rid of, LaShawn McCoy and Kiko and bring in Kiko and all the other moves they've done. When you do things like that and lose, there's going to be some problems, and it's going to take some time to dig themselves out of this. And especially guys like DeMarco and Byron, who you paid to be top 5 players at their position, they're obviously not living up to it, and they're not really rah-rah locker room leader guys either. So you're not at least even getting that aspect. So, I don't know if they're willing to admit their mistakes at this point. I don't really know where they go with that. And another thing is you miss on first-round picks like they did with Marcus Smith and obviously not getting the production of Nelson Aguilar. You miss on those early draft picks and free agents, that sets your organization back years. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to pull out of this. And Chip Kelly was just given the personnel authority not even a year ago. So there's no way you can get rid of the guy already. He hasn't even had a full year to adjust to this whole position and process. And he's not a GM that just sat there idly and didn't do anything that people get mad at. Oh, our GM is just sitting here not making moves. He was very aggressive, and he made moves, very aggressive moves, and spent money. So you can't fault him for not doing anything, but, the moves didn't pan out. And when that happens, there's going to be a recovery time, and I hope the fans are accommodating to that.
Plenty of Chip Kelly opinion hiding there underneath underneath the Eagles employee badge. All right, we'll let you go. We appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, safe travels, and we'll have to bother you again sometime to talk Packers football as the season goes on, because it's always fun. I feel like we were a little too position by position-y, but it's because we haven't talked at all this season, so it was a little more of like a recap.
Well, it was great talking with you guys. I always like talking ball, especially Packers, and I'd be more than happy to talk again.
Yeah, you got to make like the 90-minute trip into the city. We don't have cars, so I'm just going to chalk it like I'm going to make it. Right. You have to come to us. We can't come to you.
Well, now that the college football season has lightened up, I might have some free time, so don't be surprised if I take you up on that.
Nice. And then you got the NFL, and then you got the draft, and then whatever your job is,
it keeps coming.
Your job that's impossible to explain is it never stops, right? There is no off season. That's the cliche that all the coaches use. All right, get out of here. We're just keep rambling on. we appreciate it. Thanks, man. It's always great catching up.
Big thanks to Ben Fennel, super cool guy, super knowledgeable. Because of that, we went a little long, so I don't think we're going to have the privilege of getting to Johnny and Alphonse this week for picks.
I think the content Ben gave us was much better, though. So we aim to keep this to a not so terribly long length. So we'll have more fun stuff for you next week. But it was great to be able to just kind of hit on everything with him. He's a guy you don't want to cut off, and you can't really talk to enough, at least in my mind, about the Packers. So appreciate you bearing with us as we ask him like every question under the sun about the team.
You can find Ben on Twitter at BenFennel_NFL. Again, at Alex Petakas, at Nick Bornheimer. Let's do it again next week, huh?
Catch you next week on the T-Pack.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.